President Trump is one thing. He's good at predicting the future because about an hour after Donald Trump said that Elon Musk would go personally at him, Elon Musk posted this, which I believe is unforgivable. And Elon needs to apologize for this. I'm going to just be on the record saying that. Elon Musk sends the largest explosion probably in the history of the world. You're right. You have the splitting of the atom. You have the shot heard around the world, the invention of dynamite. Now you have this post on X. Time to drop the really big bomb. Donald Trump's in the Epstein files, and that's the reason why they have not been made public. Have a nice day, Donald J. Trump. This has been seen by nearly 200 million people, 1.1 million likes, 300,000 reposts, and 152,000 comments. First of which is Elon Musk saying, "Mark this post for the future. The truth will come out." Okay. So I want to begin by carving this whale of a claim up piece by piece, right? Because we take this personally, given the fact that we spent a lot of time on the show talking about this. Did Jeffrey Epstein have Donald Trump's phone number? The answer is yes. Can you find photos of Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump from like the late 90s? The answer is yes. Because you can find photos of Jeffrey Epstein at the White House. You can find Epstein in the White House visitor logs hundreds of times. You can find Epstein at every party and every event. You can find Jeffrey Epstein with his mysterious funding. Who knows who was paying the bills? Nobody's ever figured out how he got hundreds of millions of dollars. There's never been an income flow for that. But anyway, the point is that it was Jeffrey Epstein's job as an asset for what we believe to be intel agencies, foreign and domestic and clandestine, to wormhole his way in and get to know powerful people. Of course, Donald Trump's been a powerful celebrity for 50 years. He's just one of the people in this massive, thick book. So let's start at baseline. Moving on from there. What is the history of Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein? Well, if you want an honest history of Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein, not just salacious headlines, then you'll see that the Palm Beach police list Donald Trump as the man who tipped them off to Jeffrey Epstein's sick operation. You'll see the lawyers for the victims of the Jeffrey Epstein predations in Palm Beach thanking Donald Trump for assisting them in their prosecution of Jeffrey Epstein, the only successful prosecution of Jeffrey Epstein that should have put him in jail for the rest of his life based on his crimes. He got out. Why? Because he belonged to Intel. Donald Trump, upon hearing about what Jeffrey Epstein was doing, banned him on the spot permanently and for life from all of his clubs. Donald Trump is the only politician who is consistently on the record saying, release everything from Jeffrey Epstein. Bill Clinton ain't on the record doing that. Bill Gates isn't on the record doing that. Bill Gates is on the record sniveling and smiling. You got to be careful. Jeffrey Epstein's killed. When depositions of Epstein victims were leaked, the lawyers deposing these women kept asking about Trump. They were trying so hard to get Trump. And what did the victims always say? Never heard of him, don't know him, never saw him, was never on the island. He's not on the Lolita Express manifests. President Trump, just like every other famous person in the late 90s, had some type of elbow rubbing with the guy who was paid to ingratiate and wormhole his way into those elite circles. But that's it. And what I find most demonstrable in the evidence itself is this. Do you really believe that the deep state, the intel agencies, would just sit there on a smoking gun, the pure kryptonite to President Trump, the way to stop Trump cold in his tracks and end his political career? Do you think they just sit there and wait for that to just come out or never come out? They would just let that sit in the box? It's absurd. It's obscene. You're not living in reality. I think Elon Musk needs to take this down and apologize for it. None of it is based on reality or fact. The Grok AI that is built into X says that there's absolutely no basis for this. And there's never been a scintilla of evidence to prove any wrongdoing President Trump. Unlike Bill Clinton, who is named going to the island by the victims, who is constantly named by the victims, who Jeffrey Epstein said likes them young. Those are his own words. Who was at the island, according to the victims. The tale of two presidents. You're telling me the deep state would watch President Trump run for president in 2016, in 2020, in 2024, and would just, for 15 straight years, would just hold on to the smoking gun evidence that could end Donald Trump's political career. They released the Access Hollywood tape. They released everything they could possibly find on Donald Trump. Every text message, every letter, every mention of every woman that Donald Trump ever looked at has been fully fleshed out, and many of them have sued Donald Trump for hundreds of millions of dollars. Every time President Trump didn't pay the parking meter has been a $100 million lawsuit in the state of New York or Fulton County, Georgia. All of it. President Trump is the most thoroughly vetted politician in the history of our country. Point blank. And you're telling me that the smoldering career-ending evidence of Donald Trump doing something naughty with Jeffrey Epstein was just sitting there the whole time and the deep state didn't release it? Well, Benny, they would have released stuff on themselves. No, you just selectively leak it. They could have ended Biden's career at any time. They had the laptop. They didn't want to do that, so they staged a full cover-up operation. They will leak literally anything on President Trump. The Access Hollywood tapes, right? The whole like grab them in the naughty place, President Trump's locker room talk. They were able to find that. That was like a random clip. They weren't even on TV at the time. They weren't on. That was never even broadcast. They had their mics on. They were like inside of a bus. They were able to come through. That just shows you how thoroughly they checked every piece of footage they have ever gotten on President Trump. Everything. They were able to find one off-the-cuff locker room talk comment inside of a bus that wasn't even broadcast. That was said in private, behind closed doors. Okay, that's what you got from President Trump. And they were just sitting here on a bunch of Epstein tapes of Donald Trump on Epstein Island. And they just refused to. They're just too good of people to release that. No, it's garbage. It's garbage. It's garbage. It's garbage. I want to just play. We have a lot of stuff to back this up. But I want to just jump into one quick clip here, which I think is the greatest defense of President Trump against these salacious claims that, are I think libelous potentially, is the lawyer for the victims straight up on the street saying, nope, you got to understand, Donald Trump, not only was Donald Trump not implicated in this at all, Donald Trump's the only guy who helped me. I was trying to get all these Palm Beach community archetypes, all these billionaires, all these famous people, all the fancy people, all these elites who are so pretentious and so virtue signaling. Jeffrey Epstein bought his way into those circles, and none of them helped me, says the lawyer, who finally got a proper prosecution for underage sex trafficking. That's what he was prosecuted for here in Florida. And he was let off the hook by the feds. They gave him an unbelievable immunity deal to all the co-conspirators. And then Epstein himself was up and out of prison in no time. But the lawyer says there's one elite and rich man came and helped me prosecute this largest pederast on earth. His name is Donald Trump. Here you go.
Your opinion as a lawyer and your experience, is there anything you can say as to the validity of those claims or whether or not there will be any more about that?
Nothing at all. The only thing that I can say about President Trump is that he is the only person who, in 2009, when I served a lot of subpoenas on a lot of people, or at least gave notice to some pretty connected people that I wanted to talk to them, he is the only person who picked up the phone and said, let's just talk. I'll give you as much time as you want. I'll tell you what you need to know, and was very helpful in the information that he gave, and gave no indication whatsoever that he was involved in anything untoward whatsoever, but had good information that checked out and that helped us, and that we didn't have to take a deposition of him.
That was in 2009?
That was in 2009.
Wow. So there you have Epstein's lawyer saying Trump's the only one who helped us. Nobody else helped us. It was just Trump. This is the most salacious thing that was said yesterday. And it's our obligation, because we have people on this show that are talking about this, and it is something that is constantly in the news cycle. It is our obligation to give you the facts and not to watch what we have said so many times on this program. If a Republican is caught up in this, I want them to also burn in hell. I want them also in Gitmo. But you have to separate facts from figures. You have to separate what people did and what the evidence shows from what salacious things you wish to believe. Get a load of this. This guy's name's David Schoen. David Schoen will be joining our program next week. Here's what he said yesterday. I was hired to lead Jeffrey Epstein's defense as his criminal lawyer 9 days before he died. Interesting how he says he died, not committed suicide. Anyway, the point is, here's the guy, here's the attorney that Jeffrey Epstein hired to defend him. So he's pouring through all of the defense material for Jeffrey Epstein. Well, man, if you have naughty tapes of very powerful people, that comes in handy when you are facing life in prison, right? He sought my advice for months after that. I can say authoritatively, unequivocally, and definitively that he had no information to hurt President Trump. I specifically asked him. Why would he specifically ask him? Because Jeffrey Epstein was being prosecuted. He was brought in on sex trafficking charges federally during Trump's first term. That's why he would ask him. Well, hell, man, if you have naughty videos of the president, then maybe that's a get out of jail free card, right? Like maybe that's why they hate Trump so much, because they don't have those. You know what I mean? Here's one final little piece of evidence. We played you a lot the Sean Hannity clip of Donald Trump before he even announced he was running for president, saying Bill Clinton's going to have a problem with Epstein's Island. Donald Trump was actually the person who mainstreamed Jeffrey Epstein and his crimes, and talking about how complicit this demonic pederast cult is in Jeffrey Epstein's crimes. Donald Trump mainstreamed this, but I have a new clip. We have a new clip that's come up and that's been resurfaced. This is President Trump from before he even ran for president, talking about Jeffrey Epstein, unprompted, talking about what an absolute scumbag, this is from 10 years ago, what a degenerate scumbag roach he was. Let's go.
You raised the question of Jeffrey Epstein in your remarks about in the Q&A.
Well, I think he's got a problem. I mean,
what do you think the problem will be?
I don't know, but that island was really a cesspool. There's no question about it. Just ask Prince Andrew. He'll tell you about it. The island was an absolute cesspool. So
it's incredible to watch this stuff. It's amazing to watch it, to see how right President Trump was. And he told us, and so that is just something that's an insane thing to say. It's insane. It's wrong, prima facie. And unless there's some type of brand new evidence that none of us have ever seen that does not comport with any of the evidence we already know, it's like worth taking your time to completely gut that salacious claim, because it has been seen by millions of people. It's our obligation to do that. All right, what else happened yesterday? Elon Musk called for President Trump's impeachment. Here's a post. Says Trump should be impeached and JD Vance should replace him. Elon Musk says yes. Goodness. President Trump responds back. I don't mind Elon turning him against me, but he should have done so months ago. This is one of the greatest bills ever presented to Congress. Record-cutting expenses, blah, blah, blah. Okay, we'll let Stephen Miller explain this in just a moment. But I got to tell you, one of Trump's closest friends and allies pulled us aside and told us something wild. That Donald Trump is in conquest mode. And he is not here to like burn bridges or burn people. He's here to accumulate, to take from the other side. This is why you're seeing President Trump like meeting with guys like Bill Maher and being so magnanimous with these other world leaders and bringing some of these socialists, some of these World Economic Forum people like into the fold and like breaking their backs, but like making them one of his allies. Donald Trump is building up a durable army right now. And you don't do that by flaming your own side. If there's one person who's been remarkably reserved in all this, it's been President Trump. And that's what real power is. You know, real power is being able to sit back and stay silent. I don't mind Elon turning against me. He should have done so months ago, says President Trump. President Trump was asked about Elon live at the White House last night. We're not going to play the clip because he doesn't say anything. Reporters shrieking at the top of their lungs. Shrieking at the top of their lungs about Jeffrey Epstein, Elon Musk, and Donald Trump just sits back. Nope. That's real power, ladies and gentlemen. The White House, again, refusing to attack Elon Musk. Taking the high road, and you love to see it. This is an unfortunate episode from Elon. He's unhappy with the one big beautiful bill because it does not include policies that he wanted. The president focused on passing a historic piece of legislation and making our country great again. Here's Stephen Miller, and we said we need to give we presented to you Elon's opinion, which is that this was a pork-filled mess, and that it's going to add to the national deficit. Stephen Miller, who of course is an architect in crafting this bill, rebutting that soundly and very sharply, and it's worth listening to it. It's a 90-second clip, but you need to hear the from the architect himself, and a man who, dude, has Stephen Miller ever lied to you? He's like the single most binary individual I've ever seen work in government. There's no lying in this man. Explaining to the American people what this bill actually does. Here we go.
Years trying to destroy him. That's what brings us to this moment. I have waited my entire life, and if I was older, I would say I've been waiting for 100 years, because there's never been a bill like this bill since there has been a conservative movement. This represents the culmination, in the case of the MAGA movement, of 10 years of hard work. This bill would have been unthinkable in 2017, in the Paul Ryan era. In this bill is the codification of President Trump's most important campaign promises. It is done through a process known as reconciliation, which allows us to enact them into law with 50 votes, not 60. No Democrats are involved. There's no trading with Democrats. No Democrats are involved in the writing or crafting of this bill, nor is it written by the Appropriations Committee. This bill is written by the most conservative lawmakers in Congress, people like Jim Jordan. There is written out of the policy-making committees by the Republican members there. So, for example, as has been much discussed, it fully funds the deportation agenda. It fully funds massive expansions in the number of ICE deportation officers, ICE beds, ICE deportation flights, and the complete permanent physical sealing of the entire southwest border. All of that money, all of that funding is provided up front. This was a 10-year plan. In other words, going back to 2017, when Paul Ryan didn't give us the money for the immigration project, for 10 years, we thought, given the chance to do it again, we would put all of the immigration money in the first bill out of the chute up front. That's what this bill does. And also significant additional changes to the administration of our immigration system. For example, there's language in here cracking down on nationwide injunctions. There's language in here raising the fees on foreigners coming to our country so that we can protect the American taxpayer. There's language in here expanding the mission of the Defense Department to seal and protect the U.S. border. And I could go on. Of course, the bill also includes in it every single tax promise that President Trump made on the campaign trail, but in particular, the part of this tax promise is to forge that deep alliance with the working class of this country. No tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime. Look, if Ronald Reagan had just done no tax on tips, they'd still be giving speeches about it today at the Reagan Library. They'd have a whole week at the Reagan Library just devoted to that time that Ronald Reagan did no tax on tips. There'd be whole statues. There'd be museum displays. They'd have entire industries built off of just telling the story of the time Reagan did no tax on tips.
You can hear the pain in Stephen Miller's voice in what is a bit of a mask-off moment. The betrayal of our own party. Who's really at fault here? And we're going to descend a little bit, and now it seems like the plane has pulled up right before the crash, and it's a good thing. We're going to explain why. But you can hear the pain of betrayal there, and who actually deserves the blame for all of this? Congressional Republicans are feckless, are weak, are cucked. Congressional Republicans are the ones who slide pork spending into these bills and are able to carve out totally fraudulently and criminally for their own stupid constituencies and for their own buddies and friends and lobbyists and the industries that pay their bills and employ their wives and employ their mistresses. And this is how it all works. It's congressional Republicans who constantly stab our party in the back, stab our agenda in the back. And we need to replace some very problematic members of the Republican Congress. And we need to change quite a bit of leadership. And that's going to be a multi-generational process.